Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham blog. Today I'm just going to try and make some sense of what we saw at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday against Newcastle. Honestly, it was a hopeless, abysmal performance against Newcastle. And I know it's easy to say it now, but kind of looking back on things, it seems like something like this has been brewing for quite a while now. And, judging by Pochettino's comments after the game yesterday, and I suppose essentially what we did see at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it looks like we're in a pretty bad way at the moment, and we could have a lot bigger problems coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I mean, that performance was just hopeless. There was absolutely no quality in that team. Playing against a team like Newcastle, you know they're going to sit 10 men behind the ball and sit there and hope that you can't break them down. And sure, they were quite disciplined in their defence, but with the team that we have, the quality in our team, and despite the poor lineup choice that I'm going to get onto in a minute, we really should have had enough quality to break them down. I mean, a team who went to Carrow Road last week and conceded 3, the fact that we had 2 shots on target in the entire game with 80% possession, it's absolutely woeful. And I think something like this has, as I said, been brewing for quite a while now, and I think it was just kind of hidden away under that Champions League journey, because looking towards the end of last season, some of the games that we lost, we were beaten by Burnley, Southampton, West Ham. It kind of feels like the few problems that were starting to come to fruition were just kind of overshadowed by that Champions League run, and now it's all culminating in this performance that we saw against Newcastle yesterday, and it really is quite worrying. Now, I am someone who 99% of the time backs Mauricio Pochettino for every little decision that he makes, and especially in that Champions League final last year when he did choose Harry Kane over Lucas Moura, I kind of stood by it and thought, look, he's a manager, he's seen what's been happening in training. Despite Kane's recent injury and Nukes' hat-trick against Ajax, if he picks Harry Kane for that game, I'm going to agree that is the best choice. But that lineup yesterday, I absolutely cannot defend. From the second that lineup came out, I was speaking to a few of the people who watch my videos on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and straight away we could see there was a problem there. And I don't know what reasoning Pochettino could possibly have for yet again leaving Vertonghen and Christian Eriksen out of the team. And he said after the Aston Villa game that situations behind the scenes, situations with the club, contract disputes and all that, will not affect his decision for the game. And it just seems as though that was a complete and utter lie, because I can't see any other reason why, after the defensive performances against Aston Villa and a bit against Manchester City as well, why on earth he would opt to go with Davinson Sanchez and Danny Rose again, because they, against Aston Villa, were probably the main part of our problem. And yesterday against Newcastle, especially in that first half when Newcastle were offering a bit more on the front foot, they were just diabolical together. There's no chemistry between them. They do not understand each other's game at all. And they're both just too rash to be playing alongside each other. And you need someone like Vertonghen, a level-headed player in that defence who has more experience, and to be perfectly honest about it, just has more ability than Davinson Sanchez. And I don't know why Pochettino is leaving him out of the team. He said it's because he's not fit and Sanchez is a better option. But I take a 50% fit Vertonghen over this Davinson Sanchez any day, because yesterday Sanchez was again awful, absolutely awful. And for that goal that we conceded, I'll get on to a second, it was just shocking what the attempt at defending that came from him. And as for Eriksen, look, he wasn't great against Manchester City, but none of the players were. And when he came off against the bench against Villa, against the compact, tight defence that we needed to break down, he was the man who did that for us. He changed the game for us. And I said it in my match preview, for this lineup, we needed creativity behind the striker. I don't understand why he would opt for pace. I can see why he brought Son in, but a player like Lucas in this game, there's absolutely no chance for him to impact anything, because he's a player who likes running with the ball. That's where he's best. And a game against Newcastle like this, when they're sitting behind the ball, there's no space for him to run into. There's absolutely no way he can affect the game by using to his strengths, which is that pace. There was nowhere for him to run into. There's absolutely no way he could have any bit of chance in doing anything there. And even when he does like to make those runs into the box and he can win headers like he did against Manchester City, Newcastle were defending with 5 men in the box at all times, sometimes a 6 with Sean Longstaff dropping from midfield. He's not going to win any of those balls because it's him and sometimes Harry Kane, because Harry Kane was pulling wide, he was dropping deep, he was doing anything to get in possession, and it was just so disjointed up there. And Lucas certainly was not the player that we needed in that game to change it. Eriksen was the man that we needed, because he has that ability to unlock a defence with a pass or to find the net from 30 yards. And I kind of knew straight away from that lineup that it wasn't going to be as easy a game as we were kind of expecting going into it, because I mean, I can't think of any reason why he would go with pace behind that striker when we had the likes of Christian Eriksen. Now, obviously, it was a blow losing Dele Alli. He failed a late fitness test, so he couldn't play. And of course, Lo Celso isn't at the level that Pochettino wants yet. But I can't understand why Christian Eriksen and Jan Vertonghen weren't in that starting 11. Now, as for Lamela, I do think he deserves that start. He's someone who has shown, I suppose, in the last couple of weeks that he isn't just a player who'll chase down every ball. He's shown a bit of quality. He won the ball back for the winning goal against Aston Villa, and of course got a goal and assist then against Man City. So I think we can justify his involvement, even though he was really, really poor. You can understand why he was picked in the starting 11. But as for Lucas, I don't think it was a difficult decision to say that Eriksen should have played ahead of him. And again, go back into the defence, Sanchez and Rose, it does not instill any bit of confidence in me when I see, from now on, when I'm going to see the two of those starting. Because for the goal, again, the ball caught in between them and neither of them knew who was supposed to be covering who. That wasn't the only instance where they were caught out between them. Now, Wingston Sissoko in the middle of the park, when the teams are released, I was delighted to see that. It's a combination that got us to that Champions League final last season. They did really, really well in the league, and while they're not the strongest midfield pairing that we've ever had, or the strongest one in the league at the moment, I thought it was better to see us revert to that 4-2-3-1, and maybe it would bring us back to, I suppose, the form that we had last season, closer to the start, I'd say. And no, it could have helped us on, but between the two of them, I think it was probably the worst performance I've seen between them playing together at Tottenham, and that's really, really worrying. Because if we already miss Tanguy Ndombele after he's played 2 games for the team, if we're already missing him this much, we're in a really, really bad position, and there's certainly reason to be worried. So from the lineup straight away, I don't think we can defend the 11 that Pochettino put out on that pitch. Now, that first half was possibly the worst 45 minutes I've seen under Mauricio Pochettino. We had something like 77% possession, and we were 1 goal down at half time. And it's not often you can say those are the stats and we deserve to be a goal down. Like, in possession, there was absolutely no creativity, there was no chemistry, there was no penetration. We were so slow, there were sloppy passes everywhere, giving away the ball in midfield. And it was players like Harry Winks who we've come to expect will be solid in possession and will pick out those passes, even though they're not always the forward passes that we're looking for. He's someone who can pass the ball really, really well. And when he gets in possession, you can kind of trust that he will find the man he wants to. But yesterday he didn't. Sissoko again in possession. We know it's not his strong suit, but I think yesterday was one of the worst we've seen from him as well. And in that trio behind the striker, they were almost trying to force the issue at times. And I know it is difficult playing up against a defence like that when you do start to get a bit impatient. But they were trying to force the issue and it just wasn't working. And defensively, there's just no... You can't defend what they were doing at the back yesterday at all. And I think it's interesting that Tottenham are the only team who, when they're playing these small teams like Newcastle, like Aston Villa, they're the only team who you can say consistently give away clear goal scoring opportunities. And it wasn't just the goal they had yesterday. Before they even went 1-0 up, Sean Longstaff had a chance, which Lloris made a really good save from. But every single time we play a team like this, we get caught in the counter-attack. Like Aston Villa, they had the goal from John McGinn. They had 3 or 4 other chances in that first half, and they easily could have taken a good lead into half time. And I don't know what it is, but we're the only team who seem to struggle defending against these lower teams and the counter attack, and it's just not right. And as for that goal, when they had the ball in the left wing and it was played into, I'm not even sure who it was, but the defence was decent. Like, you'd expect Joe Linton, he did well as a striker, getting in between the centre back and the left back. But I don't understand how Sanchez and Rose didn't have the know-how to deal with that situation. Now, when the ball came to the player who gave it to Joe Linton, Sanchez, his positioning wasn't great and he didn't really check to see where Joe Linton was. But just before the pass was made, he seemed to make a run into the space that Alderweireld was marking, and there was no striker there. There was no threat there for Alderweireld at all. And Sanchez, I don't know what he was doing, but he seemed to make a run away from Joe Linton. Now, that obviously right there is the first mistake that was made. But then Danny Rose's positioning, he was so far wide, and there was no threat there. Matt Ritchie was playing in right wing back for them. He kind of come into a more central role, and he was a bit deeper than you would expect him to be in that attack. But Danny Rose was so far wide, and I don't know if he was hesitating or if he just wasn't aware of the situation with Joe Linton. And it was just very similar to that goal against Aston Villa. Neither of them knew who was going to cover it. And the fact that Joe Linton managed to get that much space, easily 5-10 yards either side of him, in that situation, it wasn't exactly a counter attack. I mean, it was somewhat of a sustained attack, and to find that much space in the pass, it was so easy to pick him out. Just lifted over Davinson Sanchez. Joe Linton is in on goal, kept onside by Alderweireld, I think, and Rose was just nowhere near it. And Rose did try to come back in and make a challenge, but he was never going to get there in time. And something that hasn't been mentioned, which I think was a bit overshadowed by the defending there, was Hugo Lloris. And it's something he does, again, quite a bit. In that one-on-one situation, he's stuck to his line, and it's not the first time he's done it. And I saw it a bit from Paulo Gazzaniga in pre-season as well. Like, in that situation when there's a player 12-15 yards out with a free shot on goal, one-on-one, sure, Rose is trying to recover, but he's never going to get there in time. Lloris has to be sprinting out at him, trying to put him off, trying to close the angle a bit, but he's just stuck on his line. And in the end, the finish from Joe Linton was nowhere near the corner. It was pretty central, but Lloris has no chance because he's stuck on his line, and he's got way more to do than if he had gone out. And even if he just tried to block the ball rather than save it, it was it was really, really poor. And there's a lot more than just Sanchez to blame for that goal, but I think he was the key part of that, in kind of presenting that opportunity to Newcastle so easily. And it's just really strange that we do perform this way against the smaller teams, because you could see, you know, people are saying that it's the games against the top six that get us, and it's losing away to Man City, losing away to Arsenal, losing away to Liverpool, that's keeping us from holding trophies and pushing on to be the next big thing in England. But it's these games that are going to get us. Like, look towards the end of last season. In the Premier League last season, we lost 13 games, which is absolutely dreadful. But again, I think we're just overshadowed by getting into that top four and having that Champions League final. But we lost to Wolves, we lost to Burnley, we lost to Southampton. In our last 15 league games, we've won 4. 4 out of 15 games. Those games were against Brighton, Aston Villa, Huddersfield and Crystal Palace. And it's simply not good enough. And you could tell yesterday that it just didn't seem as though the match was the priority for the players in that moment. It's like there was something else at the forefront of their minds, and I think that may have been confirmed by Pochettino's post-match conference. But it was just that first half, especially, it was just a disjointed, lacklustre performance, and it's not what we've come to expect from Tottenham recently. But to be honest, I can't say it was much of a shock, because we had so many performances last season that they were almost like this, but we did manage to pull it back. And even against Aston Villa, if it hadn't been for that Ndombele goal, this could have happened 2 weeks ago. But thankfully we did pull it back then. And the performance against City was dreadful as well. We somehow managed to come out of that with a point, which again I think kind of covered over the cracks. But we couldn't do it yesterday. And you'd expect going into half time there's going to be some bit of a discussion with Pochettino that would maybe change the tactics a bit. Well, we want to spur them on and come out in the second half, but it was just more the same in that second half, to be honest. We were a bit better in possession in that we kept the ball, but again there was no penetration, and we had 80% possession overall in the game, and I think we didn't have one clear goal scoring opportunity, like a one-on-one chance. There was a few from crosses, but they were difficult situations from the pace in the ball or something. And like when we did get in possession, the majority of it was in front of that Newcastle defence, when they were defending with the 5 at the back, really, really narrow, and then the 4 in midfield in front of them, with Joe Linton left on his own high up the pitch, and even at times he was dropping back behind the ball. But again, this is where you need the Erikssens and the Lo Celsos to kind of pick out those passes and manage. Like, they have the capabilities to open up that defence, and eventually they did come on at about the hour mark. But at that stage it was too late, because Newcastle, they had their goal. They had, I suppose, the confidence from having kept us out for an hour, and they knew what they had to do. And as I said, to be fair to Newcastle, they were really disciplined and they stuck to their game plan absolutely perfectly, and they deserved the win. They absolutely did deserve the win. Now, the only positive I can really take from that second half, which it's really clutching at straws, but Moussa Sissoko, when he did go out on the right, was a lot better from what we've seen from him already this season. He created a few opportunities, one for Lucas, which he skied, and then one for Harry Kane, very similar opportunity. He completely scuffed his shot. And those are the best chances for us to get back into that game. And it just didn't work at all. But I mean, passing the ball side to side for 45 minutes, it's how you break down a team like that. You do pass it, side to side, pass it in front of their defence until some defender makes the wrong move and you can open them up there, or until someone makes a good run. But it just never seemed like it was going to happen, and you get the feeling we could have been there all night, and we never would have scored. And I think where we really could have hurt them yesterday with the way they were defending so narrow was getting the balls out wide and swinging them into the box. And we did have a few chances like that. We did put a few crosses in, but the crossing was woeful. It really, really was. Sissoko, apart from those two that he had, when he did get the ball, he was kind of trying to take his man on and then drill it in low from the byline and stuff like that, and it wasn't really working out. Danny Rose on the other side wasn't much better. And you kind of get the feeling that a game like this is one that Kieran Trippier could have affected. And I know he's gone, there's no point talking about him, but I think he's the type of player that we did miss yesterday. Now, looking at it, we should have had a penalty. We absolutely should have had a penalty when Lascelles took down Harry Kane in the box. But I think the fact that we are kind of depending on that to have gotten back into a game against a team like Newcastle, who are in the situation that they are at the moment, it's quite poor. But I don't understand how that went to VAR and then wasn't given by Anthony Taylor. It kind of brings it back to, if the referee had given the penalty, the decision would have stood from VAR, and that brings up the discussion again: should the referee stop the game when there's an incident like this, or should he let the game go on and then bring it back to the next stoppage? Because if he had penalised right there, if he had just stopped the game, that would have been given. And it's just, VAR seem very reluctant to overturn a referee's decision. And I know it has to be clear and obvious, but I don't know how you can look at that penalty yesterday and see that it wasn't a penalty, because the way Lascelles fell, I don't know if he tripped or if he was trying to propel himself forward to get to the ball and he just fell over himself. But I mean, he fell down in front of Harry Kane and blatantly tripped him up. Even though it was with his shoulder or his upper body, he still tripped him up. It's a foul. Now, Kane did kind of play for it. He did sort of lean into him, which I don't really get, because if he hadn't, he would have had a clear one-on-one opportunity. But look, we should have had a penalty, but that's certainly not the biggest problem from yesterday. And as a team who are looking to go on and win trophies and who are looking to get into the top four, it's really worrying that we struggle to break down these compact defences like we did yesterday. And it's a tough game, sure, when a team get an early goal like that and just sit behind the ball, but we should never have been in that position. It's just not good at all. Now, as for Pochettino's post-match conference, he said in the 6 years that he's been here, it's the most unsettled squad he's ever had, which I think speaks volumes. It's like there has to be more than just Christian Eriksen in there who is unsettled if he's going to come out and say that. And he said there are problems that he wants to fix, but he can't because the European window is still open. So that begs the question: who else wants to go? It's not just Eriksen. Is that why Vertonghen has been left out of the squad? Does he want to go? I don't know. Not many people are saying it, but because of what's going on, maybe Dele Alli isn't injured. Maybe he wants to go as well. I just really don't know at this stage. And he said that all he can do is wait because there are some issues in the squad regarding the transfer window. And again, he seems to be left completely in the dark by Daniel Levy about this. He was asked if Eriksen has played his last game for Tottenham, and he said he doesn't know. And he even said, I think there was a question about Vertonghen as well, and he said to the media that they know more about him than the transfer window, which again would kind of suggest he knows absolutely nothing about what players might be allowed to leave this week before the European window closes next Monday. And that's absolutely not the way the club should be run, because if Pochettino is going into these first few games of the season where he wants to get a bit of momentum, wants to get a bit of form, and he wants to give game time to the players that are going to be key to his season, and he doesn't know what players are going to be there in a week's time, you can understand his frustration, and it's just not right at all. Now, he didn't try to defend the team's performance as he would usually do, saying, oh, well, I think we were good in this department, we were good here, and maybe deserved a bit more. But he didn't, because he couldn't. There was nothing that you can that can make you look at that and say, oh, well, there's a bit of hope here, or maybe we just lacking a bit of luck here. It was a dreadful, dreadful performance, and we deserve nothing more than to lose to a team like that. Now, again, as for Vertonghen's exclusion from the squad, it could be a contract dispute, and it could be the fact that he may be trying to force a move away from the club. But he did that interview before the start of the season where he said he's really happy at Tottenham, and there is only a year left in his contract, but he doesn't feel the need to sign a new contract because he knows he's going to be there longer than that. So if he's unsettled, it's certainly something that has been kept under wraps quite well. But I don't think there's any hiding from the fact that there is a problem at the club. There is something going on behind the scenes, and we deserve to know what it is. Because, as I said, you can see now, looking back, this isn't something that's just happened. Like, something like this can't just happen with Pochettino making these comments, that abysmal performance, and all these players supposedly wanting to leave. You can tell that there has been something going on for quite a bit now, and we deserve to know what it is. And like, how long has this been going on? Because, as I said, it doesn't just happen. A performance like that doesn't just happen, where the players, they don't seem to know each other, they don't seem to care, I suppose, going into the game. There was nothing from them that could suggest they absolutely wanted to go out and win that game. There seemed to be something else at the forefront of their minds. And when Kieran Trippier made those comments when he joined Atletico Madrid, that he left because of stuff that were going on behind the scenes, I personally thought the media had just overhyped it and stuff, and tried to make it more than what it was. But maybe they didn't. Maybe they were right to do what they did, and there could be something a lot bigger than we realise going on behind the scenes, as Kieran Trippier said. And it's really, really worrying. But I think we deserve to know what's going on behind the scenes, but I don't think we ever will. But we're in a really precarious position at the moment, and I know it may be kind of reading into things too much and trying to look for a problem, but there were a couple of reports in the week and last week that Pochettino may be leaving soon, and that Jose Mourinho could be the next man to take over. And I know a few fans want Mourinho if Poch ever does leave, and Mourinho was at the game yesterday. Now, I know he's someone who just goes to games, he likes English football, but when things are going as bad as this, something like that can kind of make you think a bit more. But look, all in all, it was a really, really bad day for the club yesterday. Not just the team, for the club as a whole. And it kind of makes that really good draw away to Man City futile when we're going to go out and lose games like this. But yeah, it's really, really worrying. And going into the North London derby next week, there doesn't seem to be much hope for us going into that. And everything just seems to be quite worrying at the moment. That is all I have time for in this video today. Please leave your comments down below about what you think about the situation at the club at the moment. There's a lot to talk about. I know this video is 22 minutes long, but I couldn't cover everything. But I'd love to hear from you what your opinions are. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to the channel down below. Thanks for watching.